Good morning, everyone. We begin in the nation's capital, where the House is expected to approve President Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill today. That's going to bring most Americans one step closer to another $1,400 stimulus check. But it's unlikely the measure will include an increase in the minimum wage to $15 an hour. The Senate parliamentarian ruled that it can't be considered under the fast-track procedure being used to push the stimulus package through Congress. With me now is Bloomberg Chief Washington Correspondent Kevin Cirilli. Hey, Kevin, good morning. President Biden knew the minimum wage hike was a long shot. Does stimulus without minimum wage gain Republican support from anyone in the Senate?
It could. And in fact, a lot of my sources this morning are still trying to decipher what precisely this will mean as it relates to the minimum wage. The minimum wage hike, according to the polls that we're looking at, remains incredibly popular, including in red states. But the ability to pay for it, especially at a time when so many Americans are unable to go to work, is something that's the small business community, think about your small restaurants, for example, that they have a lot of concerns about. But it's striking to see the dynamics of this particular policy issue actually go forward within the Republican Party. When you've got people like Senators Rob Portman, Mitt Romney, Tom Cotton, all coming out and saying that they would actually be in favor of a gradual minimum wage hike, that's a stark contrast from the Republican Party of yesteryear, even to see that developing and moving forward. And then the final point that I would make on this as it relates to the minimum wage is that a lot of folks criticize Washington for inaction, and it's justified. But the chatter coming out of Washington, D.C., you've actually seen the effect in the private sector. When you've got Walmart, for example, saying that they're preparing to go up and increase their minimum wage, the chatter in Washington has allowed for the private sector to start preparing for wage hikes.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. I mean, Amazon making news a couple of years ago by hiking its minimum wage to $15 an hour. We saw Costco this week as well, so it's certainly happening in the private sector. Hey, Kevin, given that there is widespread popularity, even in red states, for increasing the minimum wage, is there a chance that Democrats move on a bill to do this apart from this $1.9 trillion relief package?
They're going to try. That's really a smart point to bring up, because they're going to try to see that happen. But then you start talking about how are they going to pay for it, and Republicans are not going to negotiate with tax increases, for example. And yesterday I spoke with Senator Marsha Blackburn, a Republican from Tennessee. She was in the Oval Office this week with President Biden. She's one of the Republicans that the Biden administration has reached out to on a host of different issues, including in dealing with the Communist Party of China. But on domestic issues, for example, she's world apart. I mean, you couldn't get more opposite than Senator Blackburn and President Biden on domestic policy issues, and she's not going to be in favor of a wage hike or a tax increase.
Hey, Kev, I got to ask you about this idea of a corporate tax rate. You mentioned taxes, and that there's no way that Republicans would go for tax increases to pay for a minimum wage increase. What about corporate tax hikes? As our colleagues Laura Davison, Eric Wasson, and Stephen Dennis reported last night, or early this morning, I should say, key senators are floating corporate tax to enable a minimum wage hike.
And actually on the corporate tax front, the previous administration and the economic team in the previous administration had shown some willingness to negotiate on that particular issue. It remains an incredibly populist type of political issue to pay for. But again, what the pushback is going to be from the business community is, are you serious right now when people are fighting for their economic life and businesses are laying people off and thousands more Americans can't even show up to go into work, that you're going to be talking about tax increases? And it's why Leader McConnell is so bullish, not on his own chamber in 2022, but in the House of Representatives. And it's probably why Kevin McCarthy is still talking to former President Donald Trump.
Yeah, we're not even
he
getting
wants to be speaker. Yeah,
we're not even getting to CPAC in this conversation today.
I wanted to.
Yeah,
I was very excited. I'm a political junkie, and I got to tell you, CPAC was always one of my favorite things to cover. I'm sad that I can't go to it this weekend.
Well, what are you looking for? What are you looking to hear from CPAC this weekend?
Trump. It's the Trump show. I mean, it's the return of former President Donald Trump. And I know I get criticized for why are you still talking about the former president? Well, we were talking about Hillary Clinton when she lost to Obama back during the 2012 primary. Remember the bus when she left Secretary of State, the Ready for Hillary? Donald Trump is casting a massive shadow over every faction of the Republican Party, and that deserves coverage. And he is going to be making remarks that no doubt will be covered every which way this weekend in Florida. They're not doing it virtually, Tim.
Look,
they're not doing the Zoom CPAC thing. They're doing the in-person thing.
Kevin, the most read story on Bloomberg.com right now is here are some of the top Republicans not attending CPAC this year. So there's a story there
Liz
as
Cheney.
well. Hey,